Hey there, and welcome to the Green Living Now podcast. I'm Amy Todisco Hartshorn, green living expert, podcast host, and retreat leader. And I'm so excited to have you here for episode 4. Today's episode is a must listen for pet lovers who care about the planet. I'm chatting with the amazing Dr. Christina Chambreau, a holistic veterinarian with a wealth of knowledge about eco-friendly pet care. We're diving into everything from the surprising benefits of raw food to tips for managing your pet's poo sustainably, and even how to shrink your pet's environmental paw print. Curious about how to make greener choices for your furry friends without feeling overwhelmed? Stick around. This episode is packed with practical tips and eye-opening insights. So let's get started. Welcome back to the Green Living Now podcast. We are so lucky to talk with Dr. Christina Chambreau. We are going to get into some really interesting topics around food, dog poop, toxins, and there was something else I forget.
Toys and all the equipment you buy.
Right, toys and equipment. Awesome. Well, welcome, Dr. Christina. So what do you want to start with?
I want to take just a moment to introduce myself because
Yes,
you may
of
not
course.
have heard my other take. I graduated from veterinary school in 1980, but I'd been using cloth bags since I was 17. Not much else for the environment, but at least that. I was around for the first Earth Day, so I did do something on Earth Day. However, as I became a more holistic veterinarian, I realized that we are all one. Everything is interconnected. So the decisions that you make for your dog, your cat, your farm cycle back. And as you listen to all of the speakers that Amy's going to have on, you're going to hear different opinions. You're going to hear people saying, this is what you need to clean your house with. And somebody else goes, we found that this is the best way to clean your house. And why? So you're going to have to make your own decisions. And one of the key things is to know whether it's for environment or for health, there is no one right answer.
Thank you for saying that. I think that's so important. And I want to just do a quick little disclaimer, which I shall probably do on all of the podcasts, which is basically, this is for educational purposes, right? I mean, you're an expert, obviously being a holistic veterinarian. I'm a green living expert, but I think the bottom line is it's not the same for everybody. One type of diet, one type of cleaning product, one type of treatment. It depends on each of us to check in with ourselves. And there's a variety of ways that people can do that to figure out what works for them. But I think that's really the most important piece, is that I want people to feel like this is a step-by-step process, that we're all moving forward and we're going to try different things, and some of them are going to work and some of them aren't. And that's fine. You know, there's no perfect way. I don't live a perfectly green life. I still drive a car. Not a lot, but, so there's different things that we have to make choices about. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Thank you.
Because there's no one right expert and there's no one right choice. And every person, every circumstance, like you said, is different. And any step you take makes a difference.
Absolutely. Just the act of taking that step. It's one thing to think about, oh gosh, things are going crazy, the environment is so toxic. Yes, and there are people doing great things. And that the more of us that do these great things, the better all of us will be. Maybe we'll reach that tipping point and we can actually turn things around.
We're going to start with something that you have complete control over.
Yes.
You have 100% control over what you feed your dogs and cats.
Absolutely.
Wait, but my veterinarian says I need to feed da, 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 da. My dog has this problem and needs da, 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 da. Canned, dried, kibble, whatever, food.
Right.
So let's take a minute and we're going to first look at from the animal point of view.
Okay.
What's the anatomy and physiology of a dog and a cat? In their mouth, they have ripping and tearing teeth, those fangs. They have little teeth in the front to gnaw stuff off of big bone. So that means you should give them big bones to gnaw and then get rid of the bone once the tendons and muscles are gnawed off of it. They have big bone crunching teeth, and they don't build fires and cook their meat before they eat it.
That's true.
So the bones, like a chicken neck or a chicken back, are best fed raw.
Right.
However, they've also lived with mankind for thousands and thousands of years. Do you think that they went, oh no, that's cooked, I'm not going to eat it? I know your dog doesn't do that.
Ours love table scraps.
And, oh, but my vet says never give table scrap. Wrong. Totally
Well,
wrong.
that always bothered me. I don't
Well, you have
understand why
to,
they do that.
they say that because, think for a moment, who comes into the veterinarian? Does a
Oh.
healthy, wonderful dog eating a variety of table scraps come in with a complaint? She's just too healthy. Maybe I should stop feeding the table scraps.
Probably
Or
not.
do you have a dog come in with diarrhea or vomiting, and the only thing that was different was Thanksgiving dinner, and they got a whole lot of table scraps, but they were on kibble food. Their microorganisms in their gut just weren't ready for it.
Exactly.
Now, many dogs can tolerate that, but the veterinarian just sees the negative of feeding. They see the one dog in a million or in 1,000 that had a problem with eating a bone, but they don't, and it's usually a cooked
be
bone.
clear, only raw, right?
Yes.
Because otherwise, bones would be very dangerous if it's cooked.
Yes and no.
I'm so relieved that you say that because my first dog, Diamond, he loved to eat. He was a lab shepherd greyhound mix, and he got a hold of a turkey carcass, and I thought he was going to die because he chomped that whole thing down and nothing happened.
And that was a cooked turkey carcass, she means, after it had been cooked.
Yeah.
So here's what usually comes into the veterinary clinic causing problems.
Yeah.
Is dogs that get into the garbage can, or dogs that are on a walk near a work site where somebody has eaten their chicken leg and thrown the bone out. There's no meat on it. It's been sitting out and getting dry. It's not something they'd normally eat in the wild. So it's not the cooking per se. However, what I will say is, because I'm speaking to people, I have no idea who you are and where you are on the spectrum. Only feed raw bones. So stay on the safe side. But the bottom line is, this is what their anatomy is used to.
Okay.
Oh, but dry food will clean their teeth. No, the carbohydrate in dry food causes tartar, and dogs don't chew. They're not designed to chew. They're designed to, I wish I had one here. Now look at the cool thing. When I'm grabbing a piece of meat, what else am I doing? I'm getting a chiropractic adjustment every time I dig into that meat.
I had no idea. So that shaking back and forth that they even do
It's a
with
great
toys,
thing.
you do a chiropractic adjustment.
Now, is it an official one? No, but it's using different muscles. It's keeping their bodies limber, and their jaws are strengthening.
Oh, okay. I've got to ask you a question. So one of my dogs, the older one, he plays with his toys before dinner. Like, it's this routine he gets into where he throws them around, and he does that actually both meals because I do breakfast and dinner. Do you have any idea why?
Sure, he's hunting.
Is that what it is?
And then he's eating after he hunts.
Oh, that's
Or
so cool.
at some point when he was a puppy and you were making meals for him, he was bugging you and you got him to play with something. And so he got in the habit.
I got him at age 4, so that could have been the case.
He got in the habit of playing before you never know. Animal communicator may help you with that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So that's number one, is what are they designed for?
Right.
Number two.
So to refresh, so you've got the chompers in the back, you've got the
For
eye
bone.
teeth for ripping,
Not for
and then
ripping and tearing.
and then the little front teeth for gnawing off bones.
The little piece off the bone.
Got it.
And a stomach that wants to have a lot of stuff in it at one time, mostly meat. And where do they get most of their vegetables? They get most of their vegetables by eating the stomach and intestines of animals that have chewed, pre-chewed, and pre-digested the vegetables. They have anatomically, a very short intestine. So that's where the vegetables get absorbed.
Vegetables are better, right?
No, not necessarily. Cooked or raw should be pureed.
Oh.
For nutrition. Otherwise, they'd pass through, not get it. Think about eating corn.
Oh, yes. I was thinking corn. Exactly.
People and dogs. But remember, we chew and they still pass through. Dogs don't chew.
Okay, so pureed. And so you can even do cauliflower and broccoli,
Mhm.
and that won't cause gas if it's fresh?
Well,
That
I mean, different animals have different microorganisms. Right now, we're going to talk about the next chunk is the ingredients. Where
Yes.
did the ingredients come from? If you're
Okay.
purchasing kibble or canned, regardless of how expensive it is,
Okay.
regardless of what the label says, you have no idea at all what goes into it. And we know
Mhm.
that from in the aughts when we had the glutamine poisoning and dogs and cats dying right and left because somebody in China was upping the protein by using something that was toxic to kidneys.
Oh
But
my.
that didn't have to be reported on the label, and many more examples. Number two is that commercial food, go to the green side of this, is made in a factory.
Yeah.
Ingredients come from all over the world, wherever they can get it the cheapest,
So
because
they're
it's a
not getting foreign
business.
ingredients.
They may or may not have quality, some not. And then you might have a company really committed to quality, and then somebody gets in charge of the supplier who decides to cut costs because maybe he'll be promoted. And then you have horrible ingredients. You just don't know is the thing. But
Yeah.
stuff is coming from all over. And then
Okay.
the factory has to make it. Then
Yep.
it's packaged. And a lot of the
Yep. And then
packaging
shipped.
has plastic in it.
Mhm.
The paper
The line
bags
in.
are lined with plastic.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would oil out throughout your whole house and car
Right.
and become
Just
rancid.
along that same thought, I was shocked to find out that paper cups actually have a plastic lining in them that you can't see. I mean, sometimes you
I
see a
didn't know
shine to
that.
them. I was shocked. I was
Interesting.
like, I'm not sure about the ones that are eco
Like the
something or other
cup.
that have the green label
Right.
thing. I have to double check that. But most paper cups, and I always thought, oh, paper cups are so much better than plastic. Still have a tiny bit of plastic. But okay,
And
so back
and
to
then they're
talking.
packaged, and then they're shipped to the wholesaler, and then shipped to the distributor, and they sit for however long, and then you buy it and keep it for however long, or you've ordered it these days and had it shipped. What's
Mm.
the cost to the environment of having that food shipped? So
So
then
the
people
better
go,
alternative.
well, I want to know what's in my food. I know it's better to feed raw because of
Right.
all the anatomy we talked about. So I'm going to purchase a commercial raw food diet.
All right, which is pretty much the same thing, only better ingredients.
And so far, most of the raw food companies are small.
Okay.
And here's a trick. Someone taught me this trick. If you call a company and there's no person that you can talk to about the food,
Mm.
don't buy it
Oh, that's a good tip.
or the product or anything. I called about my IT blanket. This is intelligent thread that's supposed to
Yeah.
heal your body. And I called to ask what they did with returns because they have a 30-day return policy. And he said, well, I could hear noise in the background like he was working from
Yeah.
home, maybe kids. Well, there's a pile in the corner here of some that got returned that had holes or something in them. And mostly we give them away to people working for us. But I guess maybe we'll start selling them online soon. But no, we don't throw them away
Awesome.
because I
That's
wasn't
great.
going to buy it. So here's a thing for you to think about. I wasn't going to purchase it if I knew it was going to be thrown away if I returned it.
Yeah.
Or I
Most
would have bought
retailers will
it,
do
tried
that.
it, and given it to somebody else.
So the belief is then that most retailers will just toss clothes
Oh,
away that
yeah.
are returned.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you buy something and you don't like it or it doesn't fit and you send it back, they're not reselling that?
Well, there are lots of green movements that are working to change that, but the average is not.
Wow, that's
So
terrifying.
you have to check. During COVID, I was looking at buying an organic mattress. And pre-COVID, any that were returned, they were really expensive. So I thought I might have to return it. But they said pre-COVID, we gave it to shelters. Post-COVID, we can't do that. Or
Oh,
during COVID, we can't do
during,
that.
okay.
I
That's a
don't know
good
about
point.
now.
That's really cool though that they did give them to shelters. I like that.
If you can't talk to a person,
Yeah,
then you
that's a good
can't
tip.
know what the ingredients really are.
Right.
So if it's being made, you have to ask them, where are your ingredients coming from?
Mhm.
At a holistic veterinary conference at the very beginning of raw food, so maybe early 2000, one time we had 4 different people selling raw food. commercial raw food. And I went to each one and I said, can you tell me about your chickens? Are they free range chickens?
Right.
Oh no, hawks eat chickens. You can't have free range chickens. Okay, went to the next one. Are your chickens raised really out in a pasture or just with
Right.
a little door that says they're pasture reared? And this woman went, oh, I'm so glad you asked. This was Canadian. She said, I drive past 3 of our 4 farms on my way to the factory. Right there, good sign. All 4 of their farms were within driving distance of the factory where it was made.
Cool.
Good point. And she said, I see chickens in all 3 of the farms and I see our beef cows and it's so much fun seeing them as I drive to work. So that's the kind of thing that you want to research when you're looking at buying a commercial raw food. But it still has to get packaged.
Right.
Some of them really work with packaging. They do their best, but it's still being packaged. So the best is to find a farm near you, to go to a farmer's market. Farmers markets are everywhere these days, even in the center of Manhattan and Chicago. Get in a relationship with somebody.
Ideally, you go visit the farm, because it's one thing to talk to a farmer, because, we're organic farmers, as you know, living in Vermont. And Dave used to be the key farmer when they first started our farmers market. And then I noticed other farmers joining in and they would say, well, we grow according to organic standards, but they're not certified. And so, yeah, you could say that, but if you don't really know what's changing every year, then that doesn't really make sense. You may not be using glyphosate, AKA Roundup, which is great.
To not use it.
To not use it, exactly. It's a horrible thing. But it doesn't necessarily tell you what they are doing. And so when you go and visit, and that's what I used to do before I lived in Vermont, when I was in Massachusetts, I would go to the organic farm and actually help out. And then you really know what's going on.
That really is good. And many of you are so busy. I know the best you can do is to buy a fresh food diet, or once a week, you can buy some fresh food ingredients. Or I discovered my clients in New York City don't have a kitchen. I went, what?
Yeah.
Apartments are so tiny. They have a dorm-sized refrigerator and a hot plate, and they eat out every meal.
That's horrifying.
And so what you do for your dog then is when you go to the restaurant, you want them to have at least your quality, okay?
A doggy bag?
Yeah. Well, literally a doggy bag that say, don't cook the steak.
Ah.
I'm buying a steak for me. I'm buying a steak for my Great Dane, but don't cook the steak, the to-go steak. Then maybe you can have a food processor. You can have electric stuff at home. So you could puree the vegetable, that are a combination of your salad and the cooked vegetable, and do that. Of course, the very best is like you, raise your own. You know exactly how it is.
I'm lucky to have a few different options for grass-fed, grass-finished beef, which is the prime thing.
And then the other thing to do to save costs, because cost is a big thing for a lot of people, is you can buy greener thing that maybe cost more, is find people who butcher wild game. Not all hunters want to eat the whole animal. And so you may be able to pay just a butchering fee and get a whole deer, or depending on where you live, an elk or partridge or whatever.
When you say meat, and I've heard 80% meat, 20% vegetables, is that?
So what should a person eat? Should they be vegetarian, macrobiotic? Should they be keto? Should they be no grain? Should they be Mediterranean?
Yeah. So it's the same for
the whole range.
It is for us humans.
And dogs have ripping and tearing teeth, bone crunching teeth, and they don't chew their food. So therefore, does a vegetarian diet make sense?
No.
No. However, there are veterinarians who I respect a lot who are promoting vegetarian diets. But if you're doing a vegetarian diet, you need to really research it, just like you do for a person, because people are more omnivores. And supplement for sure. So that's something you need to really explore. The dog and cat are designed to eat certain foods. Cats don't have those incisors so much to gnaw on stuff. They just have ripping and tearing and bone crunching. So number 1, anatomy and physiology. Number 2, what they've eaten for generations, for centuries, which expands what you could feed more for dogs than cats. And then sourcing it, the ingredients and the packaging, and thinking about the footprint of it. And now there's another thing about food that's really cool. What happens to food once it's digested? It becomes poop, dog poop. is one of the major polluters in the world, and cat poop, because it produces high nitrogen. So if it's anywhere near a water source, that increases the nitrogen in the water, causing algae blooms and problems that then the manatees here where I live are starving to death. It's starting to turn around now, but we've had 3 really bad years. And a lot of it was the high nitrogen. There were other things too. Now it's back to the boats hitting them more. There are other causes of death too.
So
What?
the dog poop and the cat poop is sort of like sewage being released into waterways, essentially.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. There you go.
And you had mentioned to me off camera that a conventional dog food or cat food diet produces more nitrogen than a fresh diet does.
Well, I don't know per se about the nitrogen, but ultimately it would. We just looked it up, and I think actually this is a low number, but one of the reports said that a 50-pound dog produces a pound of poop a day. A pound of poop, that's this much, that's like a pound. It's not like this much. It's a pound. And so that's 300 pounds a year. So if you're living in a suburban community with a lot of dogs, that's a lot of poop, therefore a lot of nitrogen.
Right.
Now, dogs on a raw food diet, whether it's commercial or you're finding the ingredients yourself, their stools are a quarter the size, like you found, Amy.
A quarter the size. Yes, that's right. My dog, when I shifted her over to eating raw, I thought, oh, she's not pooping the same way. Is that a problem? But now you're telling me that's actually a good sign, and it's a wonderful thing for the environment because it's less poop being produced. More nutrients probably being absorbed.
Exactly. There's not as much filler that has to get pushed out.
That's why the whole grain-free thing has become
so no. The bottom line is when you find the right diet for your individual animal, you'll have the smallest poops. My cat poops would be the size of the tip of my small finger, and that might be twice a day.
One of my dogs had an anal gland issue. And I remember you had told me on the phone that when they poop, they actually express their anal glands.
Yep.
So if the poop is thinner and smaller, is that going to cause any issues?
When they're healthy, see, it's not
doesn't matter when they're healthy.
just that. And if you think about in the wild, what are their poop sizes? Think about walking in the woods. You see fox poop, coyote poop, Wyatt, where you are. How big are those poops? Are they great big logs like this?
No.
They're small.
Only the bear poop is big.
Well, a bear is a bit bigger than a dog, but they're small, and they're not getting anal gland problems.
That's true. The health of the animal has more to do with it.
The anal glands and the body adjusts to that smaller stool size because that's what's normal.
Okay.
So it's still expressing the anal sac.
A different type of poop.
And the other thing is, who knows? Maybe we're totally wrong on that.
No, we know.
That's the best. But therefore, we now have a whole separate area that you've helped by feeding a fresh food diet. You've helped the environment. You've helped your animal. Your animal loves you a lot better for feeding stuff he likes to eat.
Gosh, yeah.
And you can tweak the diet with organ meats and other things. That's a whole nother story. So you are also helping the environment because depending on where you live, if you're in a mostly white area, they're not eating the tongue, they're not eating the chicken feet, they're not eating the chicken back. So therefore, if you're feeding that to your dogs and cats, which is cost less, you're now helping the whole animal being eaten.
So talk a little bit about picking up poop and composting bags.
Oh,
and
right.
that sort of
Yep.
thing.
So this is an area that I do not have the answer at all in. And I have just recently researched it, and I can't find that anybody out there has the answer. So I'm just going to give you a set of facts.
Okay.
But there's no answer. There is one best, but it doesn't work for everybody, like living in an apartment building. So we have just the plastic bags you find everywhere, or you use your plastic grocery sack to pick up the poop in. Well, we know that's not good. We don't want plastic going into the landfill.
And can I just add a little bit to that?
Sure.
So the plastic is basically isolating the poop in there. It's never going to be able to be composting in a big landfill. It's just filling up, everything that's in a plastic bag that doesn't break down is just going to contain that
nothing breaks down in a big landfill because it's
No,
anaerobic.
that's true.
It's anaerobic. Eventually it breaks down. It's more the plastic, I think, that never breaks down.
Correct.
I think the plastic
or in the
breaks
ocean.
down eventually and lets the poop out, but it's
Right.
probably calcified by then. The second thing is you can ask, what are the poop bags made from?
Right.
So then you research, this bag, does it have microplastics in it? Is this one made from sugarcane? If it's made from sugarcane, are they cutting down the rainforest to have sugarcane fields to make the dog poop bags?
Ooh, or the corn starch based ones, are they using GMO corn that's sprayed with glyphosate?
Which
Yee,
wouldn't
that
matter
whole-
so much with a dog poop bag,
Okay.
but you would be supporting that
Correct.
practice going
And
on.
actually, that's a really critical piece. There was a couple things that I wanted to highlight. One is the things that we have control over. That's what we're talking about here, right?
Yes.
And the other thing is every time we spend our money on something, we're essentially saying we want more of that.
That's right. Good
Right.
point. Good
Okay.
point. Very good. And so you have bags made of, quote, good sources, but where did it come from and what was the production like? And how were the workers treated that were producing the raw ingredients for that? That's a whole nother area.
Right. And how
There's
far
this-
is it being shipped or flown or whatever?
There is this incredible little YouTube that is still out there. It's been out there forever. The story of the.
I remember that one. Yes.
You need to actually show that on your podcast and talk about
Or
it.
put it on the YouTube channel and then do a
Do a
commentary.
talk
That's a
about
great
it.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's
wonderful.
awesome. It really will blow you away. So that's another one. And then they have compostable bags. And you have to ask the question, what are the compostable bags made from?
Mhm.
Now, what I just learned is that if you buy compostable bags, yay, that's a good thing. No, if you throw it in your trash can and it goes into landfill, which is anaerobic,
Right. That's
it
doing good.
then puts, as it breaks down, it produces a ton of methane.
Ooh, so that's even worse.
So that's even worse.
Yeah.
If you're getting a compostable bag made from good ingredients and you live in a place that commercially composts as part of your pickup system,
Mhm.
that's the very best, but you don't have control over all of that.
And I recently heard that there's a difference between compostable and biodegradable. My understanding is biodegradable is actually better because compostable can actually still have plastic, but they add starch or something so that it breaks down, which to me seems worse because then it becomes microplastic, right?
Right,
If I
yep.
think biodegradable is the ideal, but you were telling me about making your own. If you don't live in a suburb, how do you
Right.
make your own dog poop?
If you don't live in a city, but you live in a suburb or
Okay.
rural, or if you live in the city and you have dog parks. Dog parks aren't necessarily the best place for your dogs to be, depending on when you go there. You have to pay attention to it. However, it might be a place where, like a community garden, you could have a community dog poop composter.
Oh, wow.
And everybody chip in to pay somebody to take care of it, or you rotate taking care of it. So a dog poop composter you can get for your backyard, and you can purchase them or make them. It's a metal can with holes in it. You put the poop in, and then there are tons of different approaches. I don't know which one's the best. You put a
Right.
little enzyme in and you put a little carbohydrate in, like weeds or newspaper. Compost heaps need protein, right?
Browns and greens. What would be the enzyme type of thing?
I don't know.
Hmm.
The commercial
Well,
dog
but-
composters say use their enzyme. I actually haven't
okay.
researched that
Oh,
one.
I bet it's similar to what's used in an RV toilet.
Oh, that could be. That's a
So maybe a
possibility.
scoop of that type of thing. And then
Research-
let me just ask you,
Oh,
sorry.
yeah.
Top on it? No
Yeah,
top.
yeah, you definitely keep a top on it, but it has holes in the
You
bottom.
don't want the rain to get into it.
Yeah, and I guess you don't want animals digging in it. And
So
then there's a
clever.
whole lot of discussion about whether you can use it again or you should put it in the trash. Of course you can use it. To be on the safe side, in modern sterile America, use it on non-edibles.
Right.
However, in the rest of the world, they use honey buckets. I actually have a little gold for my charm bracelet of a honey bucket where they went around and they collected people poo, composted it, and then put it on the vegetables. And they've done that
Wow.
for centuries. Once things break down, The thing is, everybody goes, oh, but they're pathogens and they're. So here's the thing.
Pharmaceuticals too. That's
Be
the other.
safe and pharmaceuticals. Be safe,
Yeah.
but pharmaceuticals are everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
Which actually leads us into the next.
and be safe and don't use it on your vegetable unless you are at an advanced level and you've done your research and you know what you're doing, and then be careful who you talk to about it. So we want to err on the side of caution because we're talking to so many people at so many different levels.
Right.
And one of the ways that you may be contributing to the drug problem is that you are trying to get rid of symptoms because your conventional veterinarian is used to getting rid of symptoms by every time you go in getting a drug to get rid of that symptom. And then that drug is excreted, or you might throw it in the toilet or throw it outside or in the trash.
Right.
Because you may not have an appropriate drugstore that's willing to do the pickup for you to properly dispose of it. One thing is to shift to not trying to get rid of symptoms all the time and really working with the body. And an earlier talk that I've done with Amy goes into that in great detail. So you can learn a lot more about it there.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes along with the information.
Perfect. That's great. So you'll be able to check in the show notes for that. And then something you have bigger control over are flea and tick preparations. I wrote a book called Fleas Be Gone, and it's a Kindle book.
Oh, cool.
And so we'll have a downloadable report as a gift for you on Fleas Be Gone, as well as on nutrition. Those will be two of the freebies that you'll get for this talk. Number one is flea and tick products don't work. They work for a little while, and then the guys mutate, and now they don't work anymore. And we go to another one, and then we go to another one, and then we go to another one. Number two, would you put a chemical collar around your baby's neck?
24/7? No way.
Would you give them a pill that's a chemical that goes in their body?
No.
No. So that's number one. And all of that is bad for the environment. The packaging, the making of it, the disposal of it, not good for the environment. So what are our green options? The best green option for fleas is to get your dog healthy.
I knew you were going to say that. I had my own personal experience with that. My first dog, Diamond, that I mentioned earlier, when I got him, he had fleas. So I gave him a few different baths using Dr. Bronner's peppermint soap and combed him. I did that just over a few days, and that was it. And I was feeding him really good food at the same time.
Right.
So his health increased. That made him more resistant to fleas. He wasn't as attractive as a host. That doesn't work for ticks, though, does it?
Not as much. However, healthy dogs and cats are much less likely to become ill with anything the tick might give them.
Okay, that's good.
I have to edit my flea talk. It's not in there. But we now have two different things. One is an electromagnetic tag that puts out these different frequencies that repel ticks, mosquitoes, fleas, other things, as long as there's not a lot there already. And a newer one, been in Europe for decades, but it's new to the US, is an ultrasonic one.
Ooh, I think I like that better because electromagnetic makes me wonder about the EMF issue.
No, it doesn't seem to be an EMF issue. The problem with the EMF ones is you're not supposed to bathe your dog, but let them go swimming. They say it takes a month to get the field built up around the animal. I don't remember it used to say that, but they say that now. So may or may not. The bottom line is there are a lot of products out there.
Yeah.
And you have to experiment and see what ones you need for the ticks while you're picking them off.
Right.
And there are things you can put in the water, things you can put in the food. There's herbals, there's essential oils, there's flower essences, which are even the safest out there while you're working to build health.
Right.
And in 35 years of practice, I 3 times had to resort to chemicals. To the internal revolution for various reasons. A new baby in the house, total stress. They did everything. Nothing was working. Who knows? Maybe there was something wrong energetically around that house.
Yeah.
There's so much you can do for fleas and ticks. So avoid flea and tick chemicals.
One other one I wondered about too was HeartGuard. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So the thing with heartworm preventative is you need to go to my website, ChristinaChambreau.com, or to Holistic Action. And you'll get a link to a Holistic Actions. And if you become a member, you can do lots of research there. It is actually the best thing you can do for yourself to learn health for your animal and to get your hand held so that you can make decisions without as much stress. It really is phenomenal. And
Absolutely.
so if you look for heartworms, you will see the whole life cycle of the heartworm going into the mosquito, 2 or 3 week development in the mosquito. Then they have to find the hole made by the mosquito to crawl through that. So a bunch of them die. And then it takes 4 to 6 months to get to the heart to actually start making the adult. And while they're crawling, a healthy animal is going to get rid of that intruder.
Oh,
The pill is not a preventative. It's a morning after pill.
Oh, so it's only after they've gotten infected.
During those 2 to 4 months, it kills all of the migrating larvae that are there. It comes in for 1 day and then it's gone.
Okay.
Originally, we had HeartGuard, plain old HeartGuard. It was just ivermectin, nothing else in it, other than the packaging. Probably wasn't very toxic to the environment. I don't think ivermectin super toxic.
Yeah, no,
And then they've added in hookworm prevention, whipworm prevention, this prevention, that prevention. So you're getting this combo for everything.
So you can't just get a pure ivermectin?
You can, but you have to look for it. I think you can still get HeartGuard or one of them.
And
But
do
that,
you recommend that?
well, it depends. I didn't see any problems with chronic disease using heartworm medicine appropriately, which means only when needed.
Yeah, because I've never used it.
Do you use it in the wintertime when there are no mosquitoes? That doesn't make sense.
That does not make
Do you
sense.
use it in Florida where they're spraying for mosquitoes? And I've seen mosquitoes twice in the 3 years we've been here.
Oh my.
Now, I haven't been here in the summertime, but have I seen an occasional mosquito? Yeah, but I mean, only
But not
twice has
large
there been like all these mosquitoes. So it depends on where you live, what you do with your dog. Is it a big dog, little dog, hairy dog, bald dog? You'd have to tailor all of this. There's no one right answer. I've only seen a very few problems. Other holistic veterinarians report that they do see problems, especially where they've added in different drugs to the heartworm prevention. If your dog does get heartworms, holistic veterinarians can treat the heartworms.
Okay. So you don't have to do anything preventatively, taking something.
You don't have to, and you may feel more comfortable doing that because some dogs, their energy field is such that they have a slightly weak heart. When they get heartworms, they can develop some pretty serious heart disease. So there are consequences, either direction you go. Again, there's no one right answer. Sorry about that.
Well, I
But
think that's the case with everything.
And that's the same thing with vaccinations. Vaccines are full of toxins.
Right.
And do you get chicken pox, measles, mumps, polio every year of your life until you die? Every 3 years until you die? No.
Nope.
And yet some vets are still doing the every year and others are doing every 3 years, but that's still way too much. Viral disease protection lasts a lifetime. The exception to this, rabies.
Okay, I was going to ask you about rabies.
Rabies, you need to stay legal. Now, if you're working with a holistic veterinarian, you can often get an exemption if your dog or cat is not completely healthy.
Okay.
Now, completely healthy, according to the state board, may be different in different states, not the high level we put it at. However, you own the dog. And so you can refuse rabies, but they can refuse to treat your dog. And they have a right to say, I don't want to risk my staff getting bitten by your dog who's not current on his rabies vaccine.
So do you think that if a dog's been getting the 3-year one for most of its life, is there not enough in their system?
There is. I'm
You're
not
just talking
talking
about the
about
legality
medically.
part.
It's just the legality.
Okay. Because our oldest dog did have a bad reaction to the 3-year rabies the last time and started getting seizures.
So at that point, that's where you should work with your local holistic veterinarian or a veterinarian from that state who can write an exemption for you.
Oh, I see.
And then you're still legal. Also, we've had some changes. If you go to the conventional American Veterinary Medical Association site, and put in rabies, at some point you'll dig around and find a quote that says, we now recommend. That doesn't mean that the legality of it in your township will follow this, but we now say that even if the dog or cat was bit by an unknown animal, therefore we assume it's been bit by a rabid animal. If they've ever been vaccinated for rabies in the past, we feel there's enough that we can revaccinate for rabies and not do the quarantine or kill the animal. So you've got a little leg to stand on now. Maybe 5 years ago, they did that. That was never there before. So educate yourself, make your choices. But the bottom line is, I would say no vaccines at all except rabies, or a few puppy or kitten shots and nothing else again except for rabies. And don't live in fear. If you need to travel or move and you need to vaccinate your dog or cat, we have a whole article at Holistic Actions and on my website about if it's a healthy animal, they're going to do fine. And here's some flower essences you can use. Here's some things you can do, Reiki on the syringe. Here's some things you can do to prevent having problems with that. The other thing to point to the green is every syringe is made of plastic, is thrown away. When I first worked in a vet clinic, I've been working in vet clinics since I was 11. And back in the old days, I had to check each needle to see if it had a burr on it, because we autoclave the needles and reuse the needles until they developed a little burr on them.
Oh my
Now,
word.
of course, they're disposable. So you've got paper, packaging, production, shipping, and all of that. So every time you don't get vaccine, you're helping the planet.
Okay, that's a
So
good thing.
every single thing you do holistically is helping the planet, I guarantee. Another one is toys. How many of you go out and buy a toy because it looks cute for your daughter, your son, your cat, or your dog? Or you buy a cat tree. What's it made from? Who made it? What are the ingredients? Where did they come
the cat
from?
trees are all carpeted, which is one of the worst things you can have in your home.
But they can also be done in sisal.
Yes.
Or even better for the environment is go to YouTube and find out how to make your own cat tree.
Yeah, I've seen those paper ones too that they can claw.
But again, the best is make it yourself.
Right. Kind of like best food is grow your own. But if you can't do that,
Absolutely. Snuffle mats.
locally.
We love to have animals sniffing. It's so good for them. So they've made these mats out of pieces of cloth, and they're all hooked together at the bottom, so it looks like a flower of cloth. And then you hide food in it, and they're snuffling to get in at the food. So they're called snuffle mats.
Well, that's cool.
But you don't know what they're made from, where it came from, what the workers did. And there's a lot of YouTubes on how to make your own snuffle mat out of your used t-shirts or your used flannel. So do the most you can. Tug of war. Do you want to go to a store and buy this rope that has 2 knots on each end? Do you want to spend your money and it's packaged in plastic and paper and you drove there to buy it? Instead, don't you have a piece of rope that you could tie a knot in each end and use that?
Yep. Most people do.
So whatever it is, use what's local. Now, there are some exceptions. Harnesses. Harnesses are better than leashes and collars. Harnesses are great to train your cat so you can take them outdoors safely. You want to buy a well-made harness. Don't try to make your own harness. So there's a place you want to buy something. Beds. If you've done research and found that memory foam can be toxic and affect the endocrine system of people, then don't buy a dog bed that's made with memory foam.
Right.
Instead, make your own. However, if you have a cat who's getting aged and they really like to be warm, it might be worth buying a new or a used one. If you can get a used one at a thrift shop, even better. They make beds out of material that reflects the cat's heat back to them.
Ooh, that's neat.
So there are things where you're going to want to spend your money and either buy a repurposed or a new one. But think, every step you take, this is the key. Don't get overwhelmed. Okay, literally, please, please we've given you so much to think about here. God, I can't take a step. I'm hurting the planet.
Right.
No, you're not hurting the planet. You're loving the planet. And the
Right.
planet loves if you take one step more. Once a week, say, what could I do differently? I'm going to think about that this week. And at the end of the week, go, have I come up with anything? And then
I
do
think
it.
that's a nice manageable way of doing it. I know that if we take small actions and we keep taking actions, then we build momentum. I tend to be one of those go big or go home types where as soon as I learned about all the toxic chemicals and everyday household products and food, I was like, okay, all this stuff is getting out of my house and I'm putting all the new stuff in. But not everybody does that. I think
Right.
probably most people don't do
Yeah,
that. And
right.
I think that you're right. It doesn't have to be an overwhelming hurdle. You can just go with one thing at a time, whatever you're most drawn to, whatever you feel is going to have the biggest impact for your household. Do that one thing and maybe join with your neighbors and talk about it or family members and see if you can get groups of people doing things together because then you can support each other.
Absolutely. Things
That
like
helps.
Facebook or Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And one thing I didn't mention with poop, one of the men in my neighborhood, and I thank him every time I see him, he carries a long-handled scooper with him
Mhm.
and a plastic container. And
Yep.
he picks up the poop, dumps it in the container. He gets home, dumps it in the
Oh,
trash can.
oh, wow.
So the poop is
That's
going
wonderful.
in the trash. And he could actually put that down the toilet equally as well. But it's going in the trash, but it's not doing a plastic bag, a microplastic bag, a
Right.
compostable bag, a bio,
Exactly.
it's not doing a bag.
He's
One time,
picking up multiple dog poops.
right. One time I was walking somebody's dog and I was in downtown Los Angeles teaching a class on homeopathy and took her dog out for a walk. I didn't think to bring a poop bag with me. And the dog
Right.
pooped.
Of
And I'm
course.
going, okay, now what am I going to do? So there was a big leaf off of a palm tree. So I took the leaf and I
I've done
scooped
that.
up poop.
Yep.
I
I've
found a
done that.
trash can nearby and or I put
Awesome.
it behind a bush. I think in that case, there wasn't any trash cans around. So I just walked it over and put it behind a bush.
Oh, that's wonderful. What were the things that you
Yeah.
were offering?
I'm sending you a report on fleas and ticks. And then I'm sending you a report on feeding, on things you
On
can do to
feeding.
feed.
Okay,
So
perfect.
those are
Feed
the two
homework.
biggies, along with an introduction to the holistic actions. We have a basic course about holistic health that talks about a lot of these things. And so you'll get a link to that as well.
Oh, that's so wonderful. You are such a wealth of information and so fun to talk with. I really enjoyed this. Thank you so much for all this incredible information and wisdom that you've shared.
You are so welcome. And I'm looking forward to hearing all the people you have on your show. We have so
Oh,
many different areas that we can make a difference in. And again, there's no one right answer. As you hear expert after expert talk about this problem and what you can do, you don't have to do it all. There are other people doing things. So
exactly.
again, like Amy said, interests you, whether it's about your animal or she talks about something about house cleaning and what to do there. Pick one and then move with it. And remember, you're living in a family sometimes, or a neighborhood or an apartment building, and you may have restrictions and can't do what you think is right. And so pick another area. There's
Exactly.
lots that we can work on.
Progress, not perfection.
Oh, that's perfect. So thank you again, Annie.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me for the Green Living Now podcast. I hope you found the conversation inspiring and useful. And if you did, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel. It helps us reach more people who want to live healthy and sustainable lives. For more tips, resources, and to get a free preview of one of my online Green Living courses, you can go to my website, greenlivingnow.com, and I have a 7-day Green Living Kickstart Challenge. That is a free program that helps you take small, impactful steps to living a non-toxic, eco-friendly, and holistic life. And there'll be daily actions, pro tips, and there's an online community that you can join that will be there to support you, along with me. And it's all at no cost. But you'll find that link on the website, greenlivingnow.com as well. Until next time, remember, together, our small steps create a ripple effect for the planet. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.